Hello, my name is Niels from Berkel. Together with my co-authors Anne, Trine and Jens, I am very happy to present the following paper. If I had all the time in the world, ophthalmologists' perception of anchoring bias mitigation in clinical AI support. This paper sets out to investigate and understand the use of AI decision support by ophthalmologists, and second of all, we design and evaluate a prototype application in which we embed 3 bias mitigation techniques. For those of you that don't know, ophthalmologists are doctors that specialize in eye and vision care. If we take a look at prior work on AI bias mitigation, first of all, we find evidence that clinicians are subject to cognitive biases. Fogliato and colleagues find that when analyzing X-ray images, clinicians that are presented by an AI recommendation before they make their own assessment are much more likely to align with the AI suggestion, rather than their colleagues who first arrive at their own assessment. And we also see some initial success in mitigating cognitive biases, for example in the area of recommendation systems or search interfaces. However, no prior work has explored how clinicians perceive AI bias mitigation techniques. That's what we sought out to do in our study, which takes place in Denmark, where there are close to 400 ophthalmologists that take care of 700,000 patients a year. And you can see that this requires a really efficient operation. And there's therefore also increasing pressure for these ophthalmologists to increase their output. One of the tools that clinicians frequently use are OCTs and retinal fundus images. OCTs, shown here on the left, provide a cross-section picture of the retina, whereas a fundus image basically shows the back of the eye. In order to deal with the increased demand for efficiency, the ophthalmologists that we worked with use a decision support system that can detect diabetic retinopathy, also known as DR. This is an eye disease caused by high blood sugar, which damages the retina and can result in blindness if not diagnosed and treated timely. In our first study, we sought to understand how clinicians use this AI system, what are motivations for using or not using it, and how it impacts the work of ophthalmologists. We conducted both interviews and contextual inquiries. This is the system where it's all about. As you can see here, there's a fundus image on the big screen, as well as additional patient fundus images on the right, and there's a bar on either side of the picture. The color of the bar indicates whether the AI system has detected DR or signs of DR. Our results show that ophthalmologists highlight the mistakes and limitations of the system. So when there is an obvious abnormality that is not detected by the AI system, they are quick to point this out. But it's important to note that the AI system has been designed to only detect microaneurysms and hemorrhages. At the same time, we observed that in cases where all the images were labeled as green, ophthalmologists spend substantially less time analyzing a patient, dropping from around 15 seconds per image to around 5 seconds per image. As one participant said, you can be pretty sure that there is nothing there if all the images are green. And you can see how such a statement or perspective conflicts with the fact that the AI system is only able to detect some abnormalities. So taking this together, the change in behavior, the observed inspection time, shorter inspection time, as well as the extensive literature evidence from psychology, that we are dealing here with something called anchoring bias. Anchoring bias is a type of cognitive bias in which people make estimates by starting from an initial value that is then adjusted to yield a final answer. To give a very simplified example, if we are presented by a recommendation that everything is okay, we are more likely to follow that recommendation. So in order to mitigate these anchoring biases, we created a prototype which contains 3 bias mitigation techniques as informed by prior literature, and the design of which follows from the results that we obtained in our first study. The first bias mitigation technique is called Hear the Story First. participants here are first forced to come up with their own assessment before being presented with anything else. We simply remove the bars in the interface. The second technique is called decision justification. Here we force participants that after their assessment to provide some additional motivation for their choice. This is done simply by providing an input field in which clinicians again describe their assessments and how they obtained it. And finally, consider the opposite. In case a clinician believed everything is okay, whereas the AI system has maybe detected something, then we provide this overlay which highlights where and why the AI provided a positive assessment. We evaluated these bias mitigation techniques with 6 ophthalmologists, and we basically not only reflect on these debiasing techniques, but on their cognitive biases in general. So I'll first present the results of the individual techniques. Starting with Hear the Story First, clinicians were pleased that they were able to provide their own assessment without any external influence. However, the additional time spent analyzing each image meant that any efficiency brought on by the AI system was now lost. One participant said, "The bias has been removed, I arrive at my own conclusion. Then I compare this conclusion with that of the AI." In terms of the decision justification mitigation technique, participants saw value in organizing thoughts and sharing these with other team members. However, the extensive additional effort required was perceived as being repetitive to the assessment that clinicians already have to provide in the patient journal. As one participant said, "From an efficiency point of view, no thanks. It would just prolong the process completely." And finally, for Consider the Opposite, participants appreciated that it allows for reconsidering their initial assessment, but it was perceived as being correcting rather than supporting them in their job. One participant said, "Sometimes you get tired, so if the program said something is there, I scale up the image and then I think, yes, I didn't notice this myself." More generally, participants were quite positive that debiasing would improve their diagnostic accuracy, but this came at the large cost of decreasing their efficiency. And while participants were open to AI-generated insights, they did not perceive it positive when they were corrected rather than supported in their task. So to support future work in bias mitigation, we see some opportunities for future exploration, overcoming aversion to bias mitigation using more subtle design patterns that are also periodic rather than constant, and we find some initial evidence in the literature that periodic reminders also work in mitigating biases. And finally, to also increase the awareness of cognitive biases through user interface elements. So for now, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.